Now we're going to look at a more complex function of our application. This is the check-in-out script, in which the employee is able to check a video in or out of the video shop. The first thing that they need to be able to do with this part of the application is to bring up our customer's details so that they'll know who to check the video out to. They'll also need to see the customer's rentals and see whether any of those are overdue and so on. We also need to be able to return a video that's on time. We need to return a late video and pay the fine if the customer's there to do so. If the customer just drops in the video, we also need to be able to return the late video without paying, and therefore add a note of this to the general customer account to make sure that they pay the fine at some point later on down the track before they're able to take out any more videos. We also need to be able to let the customer pay any outstanding fines on their account. We also need to be able to locate the video details to check out a particular video. And we also need to actually check the video out. First of all, let's look at showing the customer's details. The SQL query which we use to accomplish this is different depending on what the search criteria is. If the customer comes in with their membership card, we can assume that they'll have their ID printed on it and will just simply be a matter of typing in the number, in which case our SQL query is quite a simple one. We select all the columns from the customers table and we use as a criteria for selection the ID. And here, as you can see, we've used a variable within the script. This is an application variable, and I've shown all these in light blue and in italics to show that this is not actually part of the SQL query, but something that will have to be replaced by the application itself. We can also run a search by name. This is slightly more complex. We're able to search by first name and surname, and we can use the like operator to compare with a particular pattern. We can also search for a customer simply by the video that's being returned. This is particularly important when the customer just drops the video off outside of the office hours. We can then simply type in the integer variable for the video that's been returned, and this particular select query will return the customer to which the video has been rendered. How this is accomplished is by drawing the information from the customers and the copies tables, and we use as the joining criteria the rendered to column on the copies table compared with the ID column on the customers table. We use the copies ID as the variable for searching because we're searching by the returned video. If we wish to view the customer's current rentals, and this will, in terms of the application, be part of showing the details of the customer. However, in terms of the SQL that we need to access information, it'll have to be a separate query. Let's take a look. Here we already know the customer ID. We found that in the first query, and what we're able to do is to pull in the information from the copies table, the films table, and the charges table. And here we're pulling in the ID of the video and also the title of the film. Because we separated the films table from the copies table, we have to join these two tables to get the name of the video from the simple ID of the particular copy. We're also pulling in the information for the late fees, which we pull in from the charges table. We've used the Unix _timestamp function over here, and This essentially converts the standard date column information into Unix timestamp format, which is represented by the number of seconds since the beginning of the Unix era, 1970. This is relevant for the particular way in which the application processes the data, not something that we need to worry about too much in terms of the SQL query. So this pulls in the date at which all the customers' rentals are due back, and then the application handles the working out how much they owe on each rental, if anything at all. So the bulk of the work for this query is done by the application. Later on we're going to see an instance in which the SQL query itself has to work out how much the customer owes on their videos. This is a more complex query, and we're going to see it on the listDebtors.php script, which is the last one that we're going to look at in this chapter. We also need to have a simple SQL query to return a video that's on time. That's simply a matter of wiping out the rented to value and the due value, so the copy is essentially back on the shelf. We do this with an update query. The process for returning a late video in which the customer has paid the fine is different in terms of what we have to do as a user of the application to register this, but it acts in precisely the same way in terms of the SQL query. This is because no late fee has to be transferred to the customer's account, whereas if a customer were to return a late video without paying the fine, then we need to run essentially two queries. First of which does exactly the same as the previous one, to put the copy of the video back on the shelf. And the second query returns the exact figure for the late fees in the customer's table, in the unpaid column. And here the 4.5 is actually should be a variable there, and that would be something that would be returned by the application. If the customer were to come in and pay outstanding fines, perhaps before they want to go in to check out a video, then we would simply allow a query to set the unpaid column on the customer's account to 0. We also need to be able to locate video details in order to check out. To do this, we pull out from the copies table, the charges table, the films, and the customers table. And again, we're using a Unix timestamp function, and this is to get the customer's date of birth. This allows us to make sure that the customer is getting out a video that's suitable for their age group. Again, the criteria for select query links the various tables and uses two integer variables to find the particular copy and the particular customer that's involved in the transaction. Finally, to check a video out, again this is a two-step process. We set up on the copies table, we set up the customer who's just rented the video, and for the due date we set that to using the date add function. We use the now function to get the current date, and then we add an interval of a certain number of days. The number of days is dependent on the status of the particular film, the copy of which the customer is checking out. A new release can only be checked out for 1 day, whereas a standard release can be checked out for 3. Arbitrary figures, but that's what we've set for this particular application. We also need to include the employee as the rented by column. Then finally we have to set the fee for the rental to the customer's account. This will be paid for in the next round of the check in out script when the customer's unpaid is restored to 0. Here we're able to count the total of all the videos that have been checked out and the amount they cost, and we're able to add that to the customer's unpaid information. Let's take a quick look at the way this works within our application. If we go to the check in out page, we can see that there are two different ways we can search. We can either type in the video that's to be returned and hit find customer that way, or we could use this form at the top which will search for a particular customer. Say we just type in J, we want a strict search no, we're going to find the customer. As you can see, we're then offered 4 different customers and we can choose one of them. If we go into a particular customer's account, as you can see, this works as well with an HTML form, and we're able to mark videos as returned, and if they paid for them, we're able to make a note of that there as well. Let's say they returned all their videos and paid for all of them, then the total owing, $14, will be completely settled. Now we have no videos out and the total owing is 0. Wanted to check out a movie, we'd enter the ID number for the video there and hit the OK button. The video is found and the amount of money that the customer has to pay is registered here. At this point, the unpaid column in the customers table has been updated with the amount they owe. When we hit the customer has paid button, then the unpaid is restored to 0. The issue of a strict or non-strict search can be shown over here. The customer's search is able to be qualified depending on whether we've chosen a strict search or not. That allows us to put in either AND or OR as the operator when we go to carry out that particular search function. So that's the procedure by which we check in and out movies. Once again, it's the SQL queries we're concentrating here, but feel free to examine the PHP script if you want to see exactly how it integrates with the application and you're familiar with PHP.